If you have seen my videos before, you're probably wondering what happened to your hair. Yes, I am curly. It is not permanent. I had braids done on my hair at the beach all the way from here, you know, like the lots of like smaller braids. When I took it off, this is what my hair looked like. And I'm like, oh, I like that. It's fun to have curly hair for a change. Hi guys, what's up? Daniela here from Through the Looking Glass. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back to my channel. If you've been here before, I make videos about my life healing from several chronic illnesses. And very recently, I have been to a solo trip to Mexico. And today I want to talk a little bit more about that trip. I have made some posts on Instagram about this trip, and I've had many questions and some people asking, how do you do it? And how did it go? Thought I would do a small video about the pros and the cons and the challenges and the joys of this trip. So I'm gonna be answering what my biggest challenges were, what I was most afraid of, my biggest enjoyments of that trip. Would I do it again? What would I do it differently? So this is what I'm going to be answering today. If this is your kind of video, please stick around, give it a thumbs up, and consider subscribing if you haven't yet. So the first question, which is I think a lot of people who have chronic illnesses are most interested in, is what were my biggest challenges? And of course, that really depends on your illness, on your disability. People have different challenges. For example, I don't require a mobility aid, so that makes my life a lot easier in that regard. But I do have some other sort of unexpected health issues, such as like having anaphylaxis without any warning, extreme pain from fibromyalgia, POTS, which makes any sort of physical exertion or standing for a prolonged period of time a big challenge. So how did I overcome those things and how did they affect my trip? To be honest, I think my biggest challenge has been to say no. I went on this trip fully expecting to be on my own all the time, because I didn't know anybody there and I wasn't traveling with anybody. So I thought I was just going to be alone a lot. I did stay in a hostel, which actually raised a lot of concerns from many of my subscribers in terms of safety and cleanliness and all sorts of things. And I booked a hostel on purpose because one, I had never ever in my life stayed in a hostel, not when I was young. I became a mom very young. I was pregnant at age 20 and had 5 children back to back. So I never had that, backpacking hostel sort of experience that a lot of young people do. So I really wanted to experience that and see for myself what it was like. Second, it was cheap. So I am on disability. I am not making full wages, and I wanted to see if that was something that was doable. Can I travel more on a budget? I rather do more frequent travels on a budget than save money and just do one big travel a year, more of a luxurious travel. So I wanted to see, is that something that is viable? And third, I wanted to meet people. That was my reasoning behind staying at a hostel. And I have to say, I met some amazing people. I was quite concerned that being 48, almost 49, guys, I'm turning 49 this month on March 28th. And I'm like, wow, I am almost 50. And I think a part of me wanting to travel more is that too, is like seeing time passes and seeing that each year becomes a bit more challenging, not only in terms of my chronic illnesses, but also as you get older, it does get a little bit harder. You have to work harder to have the same stamina, to have the same flexibility and energy. So the combination of getting older and having those chronic illnesses has really opened my eyes in a sense that the longer I wait to do things that I want to do, the harder they're going to get. And there is no better time than the present time to start something. I met a lot of people my age at the hostels, and I was very, very surprised. I had not expected that. I was expecting fresh out of high school girls who have, just taken that year off to travel before they go to university. And sure, there are some of this demographic, but I would say that actually the majority were older people in their late 30s, late 40s, even some in their 50s. And so I connected a lot with many of the people that I met. Some were from Canada, some from the UK, some from the States, and in all sorts of walk of lives and all sorts of different professions and stories. It was so amazing to get to know those people and knowing that we had that thing in common that brought us to that place. I always had people to hang out with, and there was no pressure. Like once you met a group of people, there was no pressure. Oh, now we have to do everything together. We all did our own things, and when we needed time by ourselves, we just kind of went to the beach by ourselves or did an activity by ourselves. And then we had a WhatsApp group from the hostel, so we could easily touch base and, like, where are you? What are you doing? Can I join you? And so I always had the choice of being by myself or having company. And I found myself having a really hard time saying no because there was so much fun things to do, but I wanted to be on my own for a little bit. I really wanted that time to reflect and sort of just let my mind rest and not have stimulation. But at the same time, I wanted to feel alive. I wanted to have fun. I wanted to get to know those ladies a little bit better. So that was a big challenge for me, was to sort of balance and pace myself, especially knowing that you're in a place for such a small amount of time. And even though I had nothing planned when I arrived there, I arrived completely open and wanting to just decide on a day by day, hour by hour, what I felt like, what my body was telling me that it needed. I had those temptations. So finding a balance and saying no was a bit of a challenge, and I did overdo it a little bit, but I don't regret it. So the second challenge was pain. Surprise, surprise. Yes, I do live with chronic pain. I live in pain 24/7, 365 days a year. I did not think I could get any more sore than I was yesterday. Yesterday, I was so sore, I could hardly move. And I'm even more sore today. So what is new? Well, I was exerting myself way more than I do on a regular basis. I was carrying a backpack when I was traveling. I had to move hostel because I extended my stay for 2 days, and the place I was staying didn't have room for an extra 2 nights, so I had to move hostel and had to repack everything and carry my backpack. This hostel was in a beautiful, beautiful location up a hill with amazing views and a rooftop pool, but that meant I had to walk up this hill with my backpack. I am moving from one hostel to the other. Oh, oh my God. Yes, I made it. Also, I did lots of activities. I walked a lot through town. It's a very small town. You just walk everywhere, or you rent an ATV, a motorbike, or a golf cart. That is how people move around in the town. And renting like a golf cart, one, wasn't in my budget, and second, I really wanted to experience everything in a more slower pace and really savor and take everything in. And I find that when you're in a faster moving vehicle, you don't take in all the details as much. So I really enjoyed walking through town, walking through tiny little streets that you wouldn't be able to go with a motorized vehicle, and really kind of just immerse myself in the culture and the people. And then my third challenge, which was something that I was already expecting because it's something that I experienced in my last travel to Brazil, and I'll put a link up here to that vlog if you're interested interested in watching and you haven't watched yet. But for me is smells, because smells is the #1 trigger to my anaphylaxis reactions. And because I was staying at a hostel and I would be sharing a dorm room with girls who wear a lot of scented stuff like hairspray, moisturizer, sunscreen, perfume, and all sorts of like chemicals that for me are absolutely deadly. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like I may have to go to a hotel. You can see it's a women's dorm from the number of toiletries around. So that was a backup plan if I had arrived at a hostel and that would have been a problem. I had some money aside that I would be able to go and stay in a hotel where I had the room all to myself and I could control the environment a little bit more. I did tell people that I was allergic to, you know, chemicals. If they could not spray themselves in the bedroom, maybe just go to the balcony and sort of do it there. And everybody was amazingly understanding. My second hostel, when I first walked in and I took a sniff and I'm like, oh no, you know those Febreze little wall socket that you put and just keeps releasing scent into the air? Well, they had one of those and I am so allergic to Febreze. And the minute I walked in, I'm like, oh gosh, that's it. I can't stay here. So I went outside and I took a lungful of air, held my breath, went back inside, located the thing, took it out, opened all the windows and ran outside. And then just like, and I kind of let that air for a few hours before I went back into the dorm. And then it was okay because there were many windows, there was a big patio door, it ventilated really fast. And then I hid the Febreze because I know there was a cleaning lady that came once a day, and if she saw that the thing was not on the wall, she probably would put it back. So I hid it so that it would not go back on the wall. And then it was totally fine. And because Mexico is warm and everything is open, it's not like in the US, like in Florida, where there's air conditioning everywhere and everything is closed. Like all the restaurants and bars and stores and everything is opened to the outdoors. There was always fresh air. So other than the, you know, hair products and moisturizers in the dorm and the Febreze in the other dorm, I didn't have any other issues with smells. So that was an easy sort of taking care of, and I did have a backup plan of staying in a private room if it came to it. So second, what was I most afraid of? And yes, you may have guessed it, it was to have an anaphylaxis reaction. I was so scared that I would need to use my EpiPen, and usually when you do use an EpiPen, you have to go to a hospital for monitoring. So I was like, oh, please don't let me need this. So that was really my biggest fear, because that is something that I still feel is pretty much out of control in my health journey. My migraines are a lot more under control since I started taking the injectables, and especially for the first 2 weeks after I take the injection, they're pretty much non-existent. And then on the 3rd week, they come back, and then the 4th week is like, you know, they were before. So I planned this trip to be in those first 2 weeks, so that was a little bit safer in terms of migraines. I did have my abortive medications with me, so the migraines wasn't as much as a concern, but the anaphylaxis was. I'm happy to report that I did not have an anaphylaxis even that day that I got exposed to the Febreze. I was very fast at detecting. I took an antihistamine right away and I ran out the room, so it worked out. And then my second fear, which I think is everybody's fear when they go to Mexico, is to get food poisoning or some stomach flu, like a virus or something from, you know, unwashed foods or contaminated foods, and to have diarrhea. That was a big fear I had. I did take some precautions. I only ate fruit that had peels on it. They had some beautifully looking berries, but I'm like, those are very exposed. Do I want to risk it? I only drank things that came out of a can or a bottle. I brushed my teeth with bottled water. I don't eat meat. So I think I kind of played on the safe side. At the same time, experiencing Mexican food, I just sort of made, a little bit more conscious choices about what I was eating and drinking. And it was totally fine. I did not get diarrhea. What did I enjoy the most? I would have to say what I enjoyed the most was feeling normal. Nobody knew of my disabilities. Nobody knew of my chronic illnesses. I just felt one of them. I just felt normal. I just felt I'm just another person on vacation. And it was nice to have this identity for a little bit because yes, chronic illness is so present in my life, and also having a YouTube channel where I talk about my chronic illnesses and I do a lot of awareness raising on Instagram. Yes, it is something that is very, very present in my life in every aspect. It was just nice to kind of be anonymous and not anybody knowing your history. But the absolutely best was the weather. Oh my goodness, I had the best weather. I don't know if it is always like that, if I was lucky, if it is this time of the year. Yes, I was during dry season. It was so stable as far as the difference in temperatures during the day and the night. It wasn't too hot during the day. It cooled a little bit at night, and no rain. And that was fantastic for my fibromyalgia. The pain that I experienced was not related to fibromyalgia flares. It was related to muscle soreness, which of course is more intense because of the fibromyalgia, but it was not a flare. It was just a direct reaction to the amount of exercise and exertion that I was putting my body through. And yes, I did experience a lot of pain while there, but that was expected and that was okay. And something that I realized is experiencing pain and being happy and experiencing enjoyment, they're not exclusive of the other. You can experience both at the same time. I think what I have now is basically just soreness of muscles that haven't moved in a long time. But of course, I feel pain at a much higher level than a normal person. So yeah, that means I am in quite a bit of pain, but that's okay. I am in a beautiful place, and that's what painkillers are for. And then next, it was the laid back vibe of the place. I think it would have been completely different going on holidays to, let's say, an European city where, you're doing just like tourism all day and sort of walking all day to like museums and squares and monuments and things like that. Mexico, especially Sayulita, this town, has a very, very laid back vibe. And I did not have an itinerary. I arrived there without any plans. And I just kind of took, one day at a time. Whenever the opportunities presented, I had to check in with myself and see what is my pain level, how am I doing, do I have the energy, and sort of decide and do whatever I wanted. So there was this huge sense of freedom that you get on vacation, but that you especially get when you're doing a solo vacation. You don't need to consider anybody else. You just do whatever you want, when you want. I ate when I felt hungry, where I wanted. I never had to consider anybody else. Even though back home I'm not working, so I don't have such a set routine and schedule, I do have a family that does have a schedule, and so meals are more scheduled and everything else that happens has a bit more of a structure and schedule to it. So now let's talk about what I would have done differently. I would have packed lighter. So I thought I was packing super light, and compared to my previous self, I did pack light. Like, just as an example, I did not bring a single hairstyling tool, not a hair dryer, not a curling iron or straightener, like nothing. I did have to kind of time when I had a shower and washed my hair a little bit, because I can't go to bed with my hair wet because I usually end up with a sore throat. So I kind of like, you know, knew more or less the time that I was going to bed and tried to wash my hair at least a couple of hours prior so that I had enough time to dry naturally. So in order to pack lighter, I would, one, have left a lot of my filming equipment home. I make YouTube videos and I like to have freedom of different cameras and what they provide, and microphones and tripods. I did not use my tripod once. I have a selfie stick. I was able to get by with just a selfie stick, so definitely would have left the tripod home. I can 100% get away with just one camera. I think if I had to choose one, would probably be the GoPro, which is very multi-purpose camera and it has a decent sound. So one camera, no tripod, would have significantly reduced the weight, because camera gear weighs a ton. So that would definitely have reduced the amount of weight that I was carrying. So lesson learned there. More is not always better. How to get away with less is something that I learned in this trip. What I would have brought instead is my heating pad. I am coming to the conclusion that this is a no-negotiable item, that no matter where I go, even if it is a hot country, my heating pad is a must. And then last, even though I absolutely loved the backpack I got, it is an amazing high quality backpack, I think I would rather have a backpack that has wheels as well. So there is one backpack that I know of in the market, and it is a slightly smaller backpack in terms of volume, but it is a convertible backpack, so you can wear it as a backpack where you have to, which I absolutely had to in many places because it was dirt road, uphill. There was no way that I would be able to pull a suitcase. But also at the airport, which there's often really long walks, I would have been able to just put it on the ground and pull it. Would have made a huge difference in my pain levels and how exhausted I felt during those trip days. I didn't get that one because I was worried that the wheels and the thing that you pull to pull the suitcase or the backpack would have added weight. So I didn't think it was a good idea, but after this trip, I think it definitely is a good thing to have. My family travels a lot, so I don't think I would be trying to sell this backpack that I got at all, because I know my kids would use it a lot and it does have its purpose. But I think in the future, if I do another solo backpacking trip, I might buy with wheels, because I think that will make a huge difference. And then last question, would I do it again? Absolutely. Absolutely. I am so excited for traveling again and for traveling solo too. I am already dreaming of my next solo trip, and I would love to go to, drumroll, Marrakesh. And that's not really a destination that my husband desires to go. So now I'm like, I don't need to try to convince him to go to a place that he doesn't really want to go. Even some of the girls that I met on this trip, some of them have already been to Marrakesh and said I would definitely go again, and some it is on their bucket list. So we may even be planning a trip where we meet there. That would be super fun. So I don't know, maybe this year or early next year. So that might be a trip that's coming up. I think that would be an amazing trip full of culture and new experiences. So guys, that was it for today. I just wanted to do a little bit of a review of my trip and how we went, because a lot of people were curious about. I already have my travel vlog out, and I'll put the link up here and you can watch a little bit of what I experienced in Mexico. So that's it for now, guys. I'll see you in the next one.